Time once again for a meeting of the Northern New England chapter of SABR, always held in conjunction with the Gardner Waterman chapter in Vermont. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, this evening, we have a very special guest. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to invite Michael Neis with us this evening. Michael is the new general manager of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Michael, welcome. Thanks for doing this with us this evening. We really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, SABR. We really appreciate having me here. I've had the pleasure of speaking to Bruce a couple of times, specifically as this chapter has gone through its initial stages, which I'm really excited about. Not only am I happy to be here with the Fisher Cats, but I'm extremely excited to be back in New England, to be back amongst what I consider not only some great sports fans overall, but a really vibrant baseball community. I'll give a little bit of background on myself, and then I certainly welcome this forum tonight to be as interactive as possible. As I've already picked the brain of a couple people on this call, even in our intro. There are some really fascinating minds, some great stories, and certainly some great ways that I'm sure Fisher Cats baseball in New Hampshire and New England in general have connected to this group. So I'm excited to have the conversation, and certainly excited in the coming months, years, and hopefully many years to work with this group and be a part of everything that you're doing. And as I've already seen, some pretty cool things in the pipeline. So a little bit about myself, just to kick off, so you know me a little bit better. I am a native of the state of Wisconsin, so any fellow Midwesterners, I'm sure we could connect on a couple of locales. Went to school at the University of Minnesota, and then my very first job in the world of professional sports was actually here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Very first job I took was as an inside sales rep with the then Manchester Monarchs of the American Hockey League. So any locals, may remember playing across the street here at the arena, but enjoyed staying here for about 2-3 years. So this is not my first stay in the Granite State. But from there, I had a chance to spend the majority of my career out in the Bay Area with the Oakland Athletics. So I've had a lifelong love of the game of baseball. It's always been my dream to work in a baseball setting. So very, very fortunate in the sense that I had a chance to spend the majority of 2013 to 2019 working with the A's. Of course, a team, very rich tradition, a very unique spot in the sports landscape. When you look at not only the history of the ball club there, some of the success they've had in recent years, and of course, most people are familiar specifically with the Billy Beane Moneyball era as it relates to recent success. But then also too dealing with some struggles as it relates to the ballpark situation, something that you could probably pull up on a given week and read new news stories about, and some of the either progress or challenges depending on which week you do open that newspaper or online article about. So had a really good chance to experience the ins and outs of Major League Baseball through the lens of the A's. Also, too, my first experience with SABR. So, dealing with the local chapter out there. And once again, when you look at Bay Area, just like I say with New Hampshire, the Bay Area certainly is rich in baseball history. A lot of stories to tell, and a lot of great people who do a fantastic job of telling that story. From there, I had a chance to enter a sport that I never saw myself working in personally, but I did link up with a mentor, somebody who I've worked with in the past, and joined the world of motorsports. Took a job as a director of ticket sales and service with Michigan International Speedway, about 20 minutes outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So with this particular mentor, I think we always thought that we'd work together again in some capacity. I don't think either of us had Michigan or motorsports, specifically the world of NASCAR, on our bingo list, but such is the world of sports sometimes. So had a chance to join there and do some pretty cool things over the course of the 2019 season. We raised attendance there for the first time at both races since 2005. So that's something I'm pretty proud of as we look back on our time there. And the organization that owned Michigan International Speedway Corp, actually went through a merger with NASCAR, which led to me being brought down to Daytona Beach to take on the role as regional director of sales for NASCAR corporate. So in that capacity, I did oversee all sales efforts for multiple tracks, Talladega Superspeedway being one of the most recognizable, still Michigan International Speedway, as well as Chicagoland Speedway and Route 66, a drag strip in the Joliet, Illinois area as well. So had a chance to be down in sunny Florida, but certainly when the opportunity to come back to New Hampshire, and as I mentioned, it is a return of some sorts, presented itself. The opportunity was too great to pass up. Have always envisioned myself in a leadership role within the minor league baseball setting. As I mentioned, I've had a wonderful experience in Major League Baseball with the A's, but I also do believe in my heart of hearts that minor league baseball is one of the pure ways that professional sports can connect to a community, a state, a region, in a very one-on-one way, whether that's with individuals, with groups like this here today, or with other community stakeholders. So I'm really excited to be a part of what the Fisher Cats have going on here. And one of the reasons that, the Fisher Cats were so attractive to me, not only being the only true professional team here in the state of New Hampshire, but also an ownership group that really believes in the Fisher Cats brand, believes in the Fisher Cats place in the community, taking on that responsibility. What does that mean to be New Hampshire's professional team like that? And then also willing to reinvest in what we have here to make sure that we are truly that viable partner for the future. So, one thing that I'm super excited to talk about and can answer some questions on tonight as well is we are going through a major renovation here at Delta Dental Stadium throughout the course of this offseason, which includes an entire revamp of a lot of the things that our baseball players and certainly our relationship with the Blue Jays will see on a day-to-day basis. That includes brand new clubhouses, brand new weight rooms, batting tunnels, a lot of amenities that are now part of our relationship with Major League Baseball as a PDL club. So you'll notice if you follow any other minor league teams, there's a lot of construction happening this offseason. And a lot of teams that are going through a very similar project. And those are the teams that did choose to invest and say, we're ready to, you'll hear multiple baseball puns, but we're ready to step up to the plate, be that partner with our affiliate club, in our case, the Toronto Blue Jays, and make the investments necessary to make sure that we're providing the ultimate pathway for Blue Jays players as they make their way on to Toronto. And certainly we have a rich history here at the Fisher Cats of doing just that. And the facilities that we're going to be improving should continue us along that path. In addition, we're going to see a lot of things that not only improve the infrastructure of the ballpark itself to make sure it's a long-term home here in Manchester, New Hampshire. That includes brand new lighting, a lot of concourse work, brand new speakers, as well as many fan-facing elements as well. We've got new premium seating that's coming in, which is fantastic. Something that I think a lot of people will have a chance to enjoy, both from a group perspective, but also on an individual basis. And we're also reimagining what some of our seating areas look like. For those that have been out to Delta Dental Stadium, we do have a fairly large capacity when you look at the grand scheme of AA baseball and the stadiums that are within. So we are looking to take a couple of areas and create more social spaces. And this is a trend that you're seeing across Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, quite frankly, professional sports in general. The desire, there's certainly always going to be, in my opinion, that desire to have a great seat at the ballpark to watch the game. There's also going to be a desire for people who, whether they're diehard baseball fans, whether they're casual baseball fans, or whether they think a night or a day at the ballpark is a great way to spend their entertainment dollars, which we certainly hope is the case, to hang out in a more social setting outside of a traditional ballpark seat. So we're going to see a lot of that at the ballpark as well this year. So all of that going on is a really attractive part of what's taking place this offseason. Of course, for me personally, I started in the job, as Bruce well knows, right at the beginning of November. So wrapping up what would ultimately be the first 90 days on the job. So as we go through questions tonight, and as I attempt to answer them to the best of my knowledge, please do take that into consideration. It's one of the things that motivates me to get up every morning is the fact that I'm learning something new every day. But it's also one of the things that it gets me up in the morning and keeps me up at night. If both of those things can be true, is that every day I find out there's something that I have to be prepared for. And I think our countdown is in the high 60s right now in terms of days until opening night, which I assume most people on this call fall into the same category that I do. That once that countdown to baseball opening day or opening night, wherever teams fall on that spectrum, starts to become a very special time of year. I remember as a young child in Wisconsin, grew up a Milwaukee Brewers fan. So I also grew up a Milwaukee Brewers fan at a time when it was not the most advantageous to be a Milwaukee Brewers fan, i.e. a little bit of the post-Molitor 90s days. So had some great Bob Uecker on the radio, but old Milwaukee County Stadium, rest in peace there. Not much else to celebrate on the field, but always something special about opening day and that feeling of approaching. Of course, hope springs eternal, even for us fans at the time. So really excited to be here. Really excited to be part of this franchise and this organization, and also really excited to learn more about SABR and everything that's in the works for this group this year, because once again, even in casual conversation prior to this call starting off, I think I heard about 2 or 3 really exciting projects that individuals are working on, let alone the group as a whole. So thank you so much for having me. As I mentioned, I want to make sure that this is a open forum. As I tell the team here, the less that I'm speaking in a monologue, usually the better. It's usually a pretty solid scale when you weigh those two things together. But I'm happy to answer any questions. And Bruce, thank you again. Thank you to the entire team for having me. And hopefully, as we engage upon this, I can share a little bit of information about what's going on here with the Fisher Cats, and hopefully can learn a little bit from this group as well.
We start by going to Ben Abel. He's had his hand up since very early on. Ben, what's your question?
Hi, Michael. Ben Abel here from, I'm in Vancouver, BC. So just a question and a comment.
Sure.
I'm your step down because I'm the
Yes.
Vancouver Canadians follower, the Toronto Blue Jays high A team. So I just wanted thanks for letting me speak, Bruce. Just wanted to add that comment in. My question for you was relating to, I guess you're new to the job, is what's the status of Addison Barger, just given the fact that he started the season last season with the C's, went to the Fisher Cats, went to Buffalo. I'm seeing things on social media about whether he's been added to the Major League roster. Do you have any info on that, or is that stuff that you can't share? And I'll lower my head.
That's a great question. And there will be things like that too, that I don't have the full scope on quite yet. No doubt spring training, and that's the beauty of spring training, right? Is a lot of things fall into that category. I do know that he's somebody that, when I think about players, and we've seen a couple of them, Ricky Tiedemann being one of them as well. I get that question a lot. Where is he going to start this year? It's one of my favorite questions to get, and it's also one of my favorite questions to ask, if that makes sense, Ben. So I think Addison is another guy like that who, could he start in AAA and be called up in a couple weeks? Sure, right? Could he start in AA and work his way up again? I think that's also a possibility. So, I think that's the beauty of developmental baseball too, is you see these guys who the team has a plan for. I will say that I've been nothing but impressed with the Blue Jays and their developmental staff, whether that from the general manager level down to the minor league operations. They have a really, really solid vision for a lot of these players,
Right.
And usually the things that they do, the things that I see that the Blue Jays participating in terms of player development is dead on in terms of making sure that they're producing top major league talent. And I think that's one of the most fun parts that I've seen very, very early on in the job. And I'll get to see it as we go through a first year with players as well. But no doubt, we saw it a couple of years back with how they handled the triad of Guerrero and Biggio and Bichette.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of ways that players get rushed up nowadays, I think. And there's a lot of pressure from the media and fan bases for big names or names that people recognize to be on a major league roster in a very short order. Baseball, hockey maybe falls in that category too, where there really is truly still a development system in place.
Right.
So I feel fortunate to be a part of that. And so while I don't have a direct answer for, where
no, that's okay. That's very insightful, Michael. Thank you. I really appreciate your time and all the insight.
No doubt.
Hugely valuable.
Yeah. And I think that's, once again, one of the fun parts of the job too, is we get to, I think today, if you take a look at our social media today, we got to see the players, the non 40-man players, including a guy like Ricky Tiedemann, who was added to the big league spring training roster. And that's where you start to see, all right, who are the guys they're thinking of, that are maybe outside that 40-man who could make an impact. And by the way, could be in Toronto in pretty short order.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate all the insight.
Yeah. I will say too, just as a side note, Ben, obviously, it's great having Vancouver as part of our developmental system. And you better believe that it's one of the areas, despite my time in California, and being on the West Coast, I haven't been to the beautiful city. So consider that on my list now. I've got a great excuse.
Ben was on mute there when he was trying to talk with the thumbs up.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to keep myself on mute just because I do so many Zoom meetings and I don't want to leave my mic on in case there's background noise or people are...
You're perfect, my friend. You're perfect.
Chit-chatting or whatever, or people in my house are chit-chatting. And so I'm trying to be respectful so nobody hears all the background noise that's going on. But thanks for letting me ask the question. And thanks, Michael. I really, really appreciate all the insight.
Of course, Ben. Thanks for the question.
Anytime.
Who's next?
I had a question about the concessions, if you don't mind. I don't know if that was something you guys are looking at changing back to what they were years ago or adding to what you have now. I was just wondering if that was something you guys were looking at.
It's a great question, Molly, and thank you for asking the question. I would say that as a blanket answer, we're looking at all elements, and one of my biggest tasks and one of my biggest priorities coming in here is to look at all elements of the fan experience, and concessions has to be at the top of that list. I will tell you that when we look across the minor league baseball landscape, and we look even specifically, I'll even hone it in and on the Fisher Cats themselves. When we look at things like survey results, no doubt concessions, options, length of line, prices, these are things that are always at the top of the list, whether good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. So what that tells me, Molly, is that, and this is probably not a surprise to anybody on this group, but the availability, the pricing, the quality of concession is a huge priority for fans coming to a AA baseball game. It just is. Once again, anecdotally, I know it is. As a fan myself, I know it is. And certainly the responses that we get, through things like surveying bears that out time and time again. So that being said, the answer is yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to make sure, I firmly believe this, we need to make sure that some of those staples are a top priority, and I'll repeat them again, right? We have to have appropriately priced food when people come to the ballpark. We need to have great options when people come to the ballpark, and we need to make sure they can get those options in a timely manner. I also think too, one of the things that we can do as the Fisher Cats that I've seen across the minor league baseball landscape that I think is a really great trend, and something that, we can continue to build upon is really create a local identity when it comes to the food and beverage options. Certainly from a social media / media attention perspective, for those that follow those type of stories, usually there's a couple of different teams that make a splash, and maybe no pun intended if it's in the beer category, but make a splash with certain items every year, whether it's a gigantic dog or it's a local item or some sort of beer tube or, something that draws attention. And listen, minor league baseball at the same time, we talked about those staples of quality and pricing and timeliness. It also needs to be fun as well. And for a lot of people that element or something unique to the Fisher Cats, kind of a signature item, can be a lot of fun. And for me, I think a lot of that ties back to, can we provide options or a signature option on the food side, on the beverage side, that really screams New Hampshire, screams New England, right? I do think there's something beyond, I'm as classic as they come. Okay. If I go to a baseball game, I'm getting a hot dog and a beer, right? I'm just down the middle in that vein. But I also do like to try if there's a signature item out there that really ties to the ballpark identity or the team identity. And to be frank, I think that's something that we can do a better job of moving forward. So, we're working with our current concessionaire to look at a variety of options like that for this year. And teams have done some really neat things. I'll cite the team down in Hartford. They've had a signature beer, a beer line that has been very well received and actually, carried pretty widely in local grocery stores and different retailers, which I would love anybody in the state of New Hampshire to be able to go to, their local Hannaford or Shaw's and see a Fisher Cats branded beer. So that's something we're exploring as well too. So, to your point, I think there's really a couple of things that we can look at, and that's A, what does the ballpark experience look like? But B, how do we take that experience and make it more of a broad marketing opportunity? Because it's also that too. If you pick up a Yard Goats branded beer at your retailer, bring home a 6-pack, you're walking home with a 6-piece advertisement that's going to be sitting in your fridge for the next, well, I won't speculate on how long that 6-pack lasts, right? Maybe the evening, but that evening you're thinking about Yard Goats baseball, right? If it's over the course of a week, you're thinking about the Yard Goats for a week. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities to engage with our food and beverage providers and as well as our different distributors in that manner.
Springboarding off my wife's comment, and I'm probably stepping on Molly's follow-up question here, but one of the things that the Fisher Cats did well for her last year when we were able to go was provide her the opportunity to bring her own food in, because she is one who has dietary concerns. She's one with celiac disease, so she can't have anything with gluten. If she was not able to do that, she would not be able to have any sort of a snack or anything while she's watching the game. So I think that might be one of the things that my wife is driving at this evening, is that have the Fisher Cats thought about moving back towards servicing folks like her, because in the past, over the years, even then, this goes back as far as to when I was working in the Eastern League a million years ago, they had those options for her.
It's a great question, Bruce. Great question.
The big thing was you guys got rid of all the salads. All the salads are gone. So that wasn't even a choice for me.
Well, first and foremost, you might see the pen working a couple times tonight. Okay. So take that as a good thing. I'm not writing, what I'm writing is some notes that hopefully we can take away. And by the way, that's one of the reasons that I love these type of forums too, is you get to hear from people who have come out in the past, who are coming out in the future, and how we can do better. And Molly, to your point, I think it's crucial that we have options for everybody coming into the ballpark, right? or make those type of accommodations. Okay. It is, I think anytime we look in the mirror and can answer the question that who is Fisher Cats baseball for? And the answer should be absolutely everybody. Right. So within what we can do, and I see some chirping in the comments, but
I'm just giving Molly a hard
that's
time.
okay.
Sorry, Michael.
That's okay. But
Sorry. And
Now I have to look. Oh my gosh.
it's different experience for me because I'm in Vancouver. So, I actually had to look up where the state of New Hampshire is, guys. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it's true.
Okay. And so, like, for me, going to Vancouver's ballpark and we have a concession, it's not cheap, right? And so, like, there's me drinking my homemade beer in the parking lot before I enter the stadium. I don't drink and drive, but I have one before I enter. I might have another one while I'm at the game,
Sure.
right? And then I'm gonna buy, like, I have a $15-20 budget, right? Because stuff I buy is $9-10, or seeds are this much. Or I tried to bring in outside sunflower seeds last year at Nat Bailey Stadium, and this security lady, I don't know where they get the security people. She's like, "What are these?" I'm like, "They're seeds. People choose seeds at baseball games like all the time." So I'm only teasing Molly about the salad, but I had to because, like, it's like burgers, hot dogs, popcorn, junk food at the ballpark.
I totally get it.
I'm just teasing you, right? Like,
no offense. I'm just so incredibly sensitive that, like,
oh no, that sucks.
Contamination thing could go to the hospital.
No, and
okay. So you have, right. Okay. Now I made the connection. You both have the same last name. Duh. Right. So if you're celiac,
Ben, the joke is that I'm going to be the one in the house here who says, "You're eating a salad? That's all you."
Poor woman. Celiac disease is not fun.
She knew the job was dangerous.
It is not fun. I feel bad for you, Molly. Sorry, my apologies. I didn't realize.
Don't worry, Ben.
She gets this all the time. Heather wants to talk too, so let's
talk.
Okay, sorry, Heather.
That's okay.
Heather,
I wanted to say, Ben, it's odd to be called on eating sunflower seeds at a baseball game.
I know. All I did was try and bring him in through security.
I mean, like, that's all they eat.
What are these?
Anyway,
she's like, "What are these?" I'm like, "Sunflower seeds."
But I wanted to say about Molly's situation is that when you go to a ball game, you're there for like a really long time nowadays. So, it's going to be hard if you're there for 3, maybe 3.5 hours and you don't have the food that you want to eat. So I can understand that being an issue.
No, I think that's great. And I think it's true too, that, things are, and I think this is in a very positive way, but things are different than they were in the 80s and 90s when you go out to a ballpark, right? It used to be, hey, you're going to get the same Bud Heavy on tap or what have you, whatever the provider is, you get the same brand of peanuts or hot dogs. But you see it consistently across sporting venues that teams, rightly so, are looking to make sure that there are accommodations for people with different dietary needs, whether that's celiac, whether that's there's gluten-free options, certainly vegetarian options as well, for people coming out to the ballpark. I know specifically, of course, I'm coming from working in the A's in the Bay Area, and as you can imagine, versus some different parts of the country, there's some different standards, let's call it, when it comes to people and some of their dietary needs, which is great. And we need to embrace that, and I think make sure that everybody coming in the ballpark has different options. So that's something, Molly, that I'll bring up with our food and beverage provider to make sure that we do have. It's nice to know that people who have different dietary restrictions can enjoy the game in very much the same way that everyone else can.
So two experiences I've had at minor league parks, one which you've mentioned before, which was Yard Goats. We previously lived in Connecticut and went to Yard Goats Stadium all the time. And they have a section there called Bear's Grill, which is a local barbecue joint, and you can get the pulled pork without any buns or anything and have it clean there. And that worked for me really nice. And then at Puller Park, they have the market area, which is like basically a convenience store in the baseball park. And they had like salads in there and hummus plates with all fresh cut veg, and like I really could eat. Like it wasn't a problem to find me food.
Yeah, that's great. And I will tell you too that, you know, all the market research shows that market style, I mean, you're seeing that crop up all over the place. And that's something that we're exploring as well. You know, because it can provide some options that, like you said, feel more like going to a supermarket, but B, also it's kind of the grab and go style usually as well, which, you know, for a lot of people, if it's that third inning and you see the beer line, or, you know, you're looking to grab something and that traditional concession line is backed up around the corner, might make you think twice. And for us, not only do we want people to be able to enjoy the game and get back to their seat in a timely manner, but listen, if that person, we're also running a business here. So if that person sees that line and turns back around and says, forget it, right? When they would potentially have a grab and go option, I don't think that serves either party. So I love that grab and go model. I've used it a lot myself at various ballparks, stadiums, arenas across the country as I've gone over these last couple of years. And I think it's something I honestly think that's a trend that we're going to see continue.
And the grab and go was nice also because it allowed you to check yourself out and you didn't have to wait for anyone. And it was super, like, we got me like a hummus plate and we got some nice plain seltzers, and you know, I got hungry later on and I went back and I perused, like, and I could take my time. I wasn't waiting for someone to wait on me. I was surfing to figure out what I wanted because there were so many choices. It was great.
I mean, I'm seeing that. I'm sure everyone too is. I'm seeing that at airports now. You know, I'm seeing that's. So if you think that trend is going away, it's not. And I think there's a healthy blend too. I'm not going to be, you know, at least today. Maybe catch me in a year or two, right? But today I'm not going to be advocating for a complete abandonment of the traditional concession stand model. But I actually think that the healthiest ballparks when it comes, healthy in terms of the balance ballparks when it comes to concession options have just that, a variety of options, you know?
I have a similar health restriction like Molly. And so I'm always looking at the menu. My wife and I, prior to COVID, would attend 30 to 40 ball games during the year, everything from spring training games in Florida to games in California to games in New York. So we're pretty familiar with the standard fare. And now and then you'll see something unique, corn on the cob, maybe a turkey leg. But usually it's, you know, the cold hot dog in a aluminum bag, greasy pizza, either a cold or burnt hamburger. So for the most part, we check out the local restaurants around the ballpark. We get to sit down, somebody waits on us. We have plenty of options, you know, with cheese, without cheese, more onions, soup, for example. So we hardly eat in the ballpark anymore. So that's what we've decided to do. And we're not disappointed in our options outside the stadium. It's in the stadium that we're disappointed.
And Thomas, I look at that as an opportunity too, and something that some teams have done well, which is to marry those two concepts together. I think the ones that do it well, I think, have found ways to bring in, especially very well loved local establishments, to come in, and whether it's to have a pop-up stand or to have, you know, a segment of, if they have a bar and grill or something along those lines. Because, you know, listen, I hear where you're coming from, right? You get that restaurant quality, especially if it's a well-established local restaurant quality. You know what you're getting, you know, the optionality, you generally know the pricing, the convenience, right? So I think it's incumbent upon operators like myself and different organizations to say, all right, like listen to what Thomas says right there, you know, and hear all of the reasons why he's choosing to eat outside the ballpark, and look for ways to bring that inside the ballpark where, you know, imagine now if I could take that exact same experience that, you know, all the benefits you just said, right? And you could have that while watching batting practice or the first couple innings of the game. To me, that's where we're starting to really cook with something. So point very well taken, Thomas. And I think that's something that all of us in leadership across minor league baseball, major league baseball, hell, football, basketball, whatever sport you want to say, that's our challenge is to look for ways to bring that inside the ballpark.
Pardon me. Bob Lemoyne had his hand up. I'm sorry. And then Kirk, did you have something as well?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add to his point. I live in Spokane, and I have season tickets for the women's basketball team at Gonzaga University.
Very cool.
And they do a really good job of that, where they'll have local coffee places in the concourse or a local restaurant. And it's a really nice addition to just a typical, you know, standing in line to get your hot dog and that kind of thing.
Totally. And that speaks, I think, to that local element too, Kirk, right? Where you feel like you have there's a connection beyond just the cup of coffee, right? Because you know it's your local retailer or your local franchise.
Right.
And I think there's power behind that. There absolutely is, psychic or otherwise.
Oh, definitely.
Bob.
I'm switching gears a little bit. Michael, I'm interested in the logistics of your job. Toronto or Buffalo calls you and says, somebody's on the injured list. We need a player tonight. What is going on behind the scenes? Because then you have to get someone from the lower level to replace that player. Who are you talking to? What process I'm just kind of interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something I'll be going through for the first time in the coming months here. But there's some, one of the benefits, Bob, of our great partnership with the Blue Jays and specifically Major League Baseball is there are outlined procedures. There are procedures that outline procedures. Let's put it that way, right? I think if you went back 20 years. This is a midnight phone call, probably not to a cell phone, right? To somebody's home phone where they're rolling over and saying, groggily saying hello and then calling up the travel secretary and figuring out what bus company can get somebody from the train depot. No, but to an extent, those type of phone calls still happen, Bob. You're not wrong on that. But we do have a what we call our, travel coordinators. So we have a gentleman on staff who serves that role. And there's a really well-established plan in place for when we do have, glamour, right? Right, Ben? It's hopping on a bus sometimes. I always used to joke too, when I worked, this is one of the reasons why the Manchester Monarchs, we were the AHL affiliate of the LA Kings. So, for those that are geographically inclined, when somebody at AAA and the AHL got called up to the LA Kings, their job was to get them from Manchester, New Hampshire to Southern California, Los Angeles, often like based on an injury. So it had to be in, timely fashion. So you can imagine some of the travel headaches. Now you understand why their AHL affiliate is in Ontario, California, not Manchester, New Hampshire, but I digress. So no, Bob, there's a lot that goes into it. And sometimes the team is on the road, right? It's not always coming here. Sometimes it's on the road. So there's a great deal of coordination that goes from how we're getting them there physically. One of the things that, talking with our merchandise manager today is we have to have a certain number of spare uniforms and, in different sizes, right? Because this guy is going to come in town and he might be 6'4", 260, or he might be a second baseman, who's 5'10" in the old press box report, but maybe a little smaller than that and have to be in that smaller size uniform. So we have to really have the contingency in place for all of those scenarios. And then that goes too, to things like living situations. We work very closely with local partners and local, many of our local apartments in the area to make sure that, that we have appropriate housing for both our players and coaches. And once again, Toronto does a great job of investing. I've been thoroughly impressed with the way that the Blue Jays invest in their players. And I think that's something that we're, specifically, seeing in minor league baseball. I know, and, I won't shy away from it, right? There's been articles written in the last couple of years about the quality of life of minor league baseball players. We can acknowledge that. What I'll say is the Blue Jays, from everything that I've seen, have been phenomenal in terms of their willingness to go above and beyond what is required. And B, we're now starting to see what's required change pretty significantly. And that to me is a fantastic thing. These are professional athletes that have poured their heart and soul into achieving their dream, which is to make the major leagues. And as much as those of us who enjoy the charm of it can throw on Bull Durham and giggle or chuckle about some of the conditions or what have you, about making it to the show and what it takes and things like that. We're also talking about human beings that do deserve to have quality facilities. So that goes back to our stadium construction, a quality place to live, the appropriate funds to make sure that they have appropriate nutrition and things that'll help them along that path. So what I'll say is there's some robust plans in place whenever we do have call-ups or people that are going in one direction or another. That's not to say, Bob, though, that from what I've heard, that there aren't scramble drills as well. There will be a rash of injuries one day where suddenly 3 of our guys need to go and they need to be there in 12 hours, and you best believe there's some late night planning that goes into that, and some calls that take place to figure out how we get them there. And the reality is that it always happens, sometimes easier than others and sometimes less stressful than others, but it always gets done. People get to where they need to be. Sometimes they're getting there and strapping up shortly afterwards, but it is a fascinating part of this part of the business. As you get to the major leagues, yeah, sure, come trade deadline, you get some fun stories every once in a while about a guy running across the field to the other dugout. Those are always some fun stories, or, hopping on a plane and pitching the next night in a brand new city. But in the minor leagues in particular, you do get an added element of, what that looks like. And, calling back out to Ben, right? If a guy is lucky enough and he's crushing it in Vancouver and gets the call up to Manchester, I'm sure it's a happy travel, I'm sure that, probably feels shorter than it is, but that's a long journey to get out here. So you have to make sure the timing is right. And we've got a great travel coordinator that helps along with that.
Going off the Bull Durham line, I just want to say, I'm just happy to be here. Hope I can help the ball club.
Great pull, Bruce. Great pull.
One of the things that I was thinking about this afternoon, excuse me, actually, after Ben had tweeted me on the internet on something completely different, made me think of it. Has the ball club done anything to improve the product that is put out on MILB TV? I've watched, I've watched a lot of Vancouver games on the product, and they put out a really nice, good looking product for Ben's taking off for their viewers.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Bruce. I have to pick my daughter up from our class in about 15-20 minutes, so I need to depart. But thank you guys.
Take care.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
So I was wondering, actually, is if the ball club was required to or was doing anything to improve the quality of the telecasts that I've seen so far on minor league TV, because I enjoy when I can't make it to the ballpark, after coming home from work, because I'm clear on the other side of the state when I'm working, sitting down and popping that on. So.
No, that's a great question, Bruce. And as a baseball junkie myself, I'm the same way. I love to watch MLB.TV. I love to, follow along with the road games. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. We do have one of the benefits of our new structure really being tied in with Major League Baseball is we do have regular meetings with the league. And that spans everything from ticket sales to marketing to baseball operations to field maintenance standards. And then that includes to finish it off, production value and the things that we're doing on our broadcast. So it's something that I'm really excited about for this year. And please, I welcome feedback as we get into the year. And if anybody is tuning into a Fisher Cats game on MLB.TV, first of all, thank you for supporting the squad, and hope you see a win when you're tuning in. But I will tell you, Bruce, that we are going into this year. We're making a change internally. We previously had partnered with a third-party company that handled a lot of our broadcast and a lot of our production, and we're bringing that in-house this year. So, going to do one of these really quick, just because, listen, it's something that we're going through for the first time. We have a very, very talented group of, our production team, our broadcasters, and I fully believe that we can put on an extremely high level of minor league baseball broadcast this year. So I'm excited about what that means. It means we have a lot more control over even elemental things like camera angles, replays, the way that we interact with our score bugs. I mean, these may not thrill you talking about, these elements. And no doubt, they're fundamental pieces of what encompasses a baseball broadcast. But knowing some of the challenges that we've had in the past, and, there's beautiful things about working with a third party, and that's, some of the stress off your shoulders and some of the wipe your hands and say they're taking care of it mentality. But personally, I believe in the talent that we have in the room. And also what that lets us do is it lets us be more creative in terms of some of the ways that we present our product. And really, you mentioned it, when, if somebody's not in the ballpark, that's the way that they can consume Fisher Cats baseball, either on the radio or through streaming or through that type of production. So, we, once again, through winter meetings, through, regular check-ins with the league, we're continually talking about best practices, ways that we can enhance our broadcast. And I guess I'll put out an open call to this group here too, to provide feedback, because that is something that we are changing for this year and bringing that in-house. And personally, despite my bad joke earlier, right? Because we will, whenever you do that, you will find out what the kinks are, and you will find out what the things that were happening automatically that are now in your control. But I am certainly excited about what that looks like, and I think it's going to be a big improvement for us moving forward.
The telecast was great last year, but I know that Major League Baseball has wanted all of the minor league clubs to start bringing their level up.
Absolutely.
That's where the question came from. I mean, I'll tell you one funny story about the telecast this year. They had a problem earlier in the year. This goes like in April, and more than likely if something froze up.
Oh yeah.
Because the first couple of weeks in April were cold. And I happened to tweet out to your Twitter feed, I think something happened. I got a response in about 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, trust me. I've heard those stories as well too. And not to say that there won't be those moments, but that I think also speaks to, what I was describing, right? Is when you go third party and something happens, you say, you shrug your shoulders a little bit. For better or worse, we're going to have that in-house. And I think too, you're right, across minor league baseball, there has been, and kudos to minor league baseball as an entity. I know there has been a continued push to make sure that quality is there. I know, go back a couple of years and there were static camera angles. There was lack of replay. There was some limitations when it even came to displaying your basics, like I said, in terms of balls, strikes, player stats. I mean, in things that quite frankly, the modern sports consumer takes for granted. Certainly at a major league level and at the minor league level too. So there has been investment across the league and across different teams to make sure that they have that appropriate material, to have the right camera angles, to be showing appropriate replays, to have, easily digestible stats, because once again, the modern consumer is not unaware of what's out there on the marketplace. You can watch an NFL football game, a playoff game, and see every bell and whistle that exists. So not going to say that it's it's going to be to that level, but at the same time, we can make strides to make sure that when somebody tunes into a Fisher Cats game on MLB.TV, that they're able to really enjoy themselves, enjoy a great product. And once again, at the end of the day, that's all interacting with our product and our brand, which is only a net positive for us overall.
Well, the burning question, I think it has been bubbling under the surface here in the state. Are the sumo wrestlers coming back to Delta Dental Stadium this year? Are they gonna be there?
I think it wouldn't be Delta Dental Stadium if we didn't have some of our sumo wrestling. So we've got Rowdy Red, we got Bubba Blue, we've got some plans in place. And to your point, Bruce, we got it. We talked about some, we go from talking about some infrastructure things, we talk about broadcast standards, and these are the things that I love talking about too. We also got to talk about having fun at the ballpark, right? At the end of the day, we pride ourselves as the New Hampshire Fisher Cats on, one of our mission statements is providing ferocious family fun to the fans that are coming out to Delta Dental Stadium, and we have to do just that. If a family can't come out and have a great time at the ballpark at an affordable price and show both parents, kids, whomever, wherever people fall in that spectrum, right? A great night at the ballpark, win, lose, or draw, then we're not doing our job. That is 100% what we need to be about as an organization. We need to make sure that everybody who walks through those gates walks away feeling like the entertainment value that they received coming to a Fisher Cats game was top notch. And the reason people need to feel that is there are options out there. We know that every day. And by the way, as technology expands, as we talk about technology, the option for people to stay at home and do things outside of, the traditional entertainment options continues to grow, and that's competition as well. I believe firmly in the value that minor league baseball provides, that the Fisher Cats provide. As a personal anecdote, my father has been, he's retired now, but was in the movie industry for the theater industry, I should say, specifically for 38 years. And I think he spent about 30, maybe 35 of those every year being told that the theater was dead, right? Every year the TV is better, the home entertainment system's better. Who's gonna go ever sit in a movie theater, right, anymore? And certainly, all of us, and not going to disacknowledge the effects of the pandemic and how that's still all shaking out. But despite that, something like the movie theater, I mean, you can look at Avatar making $1 bajillion, or anytime a Marvel film comes out, it just proves it every time. And I think when we look at sports as well, I think the same thing holds true. There have been articles written for years about, how home entertainment and things like that will replace the live sports experience. And to me, we still offer a really, really quality product in a community where we are the local baseball team, we are the local sports team. We pull from the entire state of New Hampshire. We pull from a broad swath of New England, specifically Southern New Hampshire and Northern Mass, and a lot of other places across this great state. And I just couldn't be more proud of that. it's it is both a honor and a responsibility when we put the word, Dixie. I see the word New Hampshire on your sweatshirt right now, right? we have to, and I'll try not to be cheesy in saying this, but we have to represent this state and its ideals and its people, and we have to listen to them and make sure that when people tell us what is great about coming out to the Fisher Cats, that we embrace that. When they tell us what could be better about coming out to the Fisher Cats, that we listen and make changes. And that when we have a chance to bring them out to the park and give them options, that we're doing just that. So I think ultimately for us, that's, once again, it's one of the reasons that brought me here, brought me up to this great part of the state is to say, listen, we've got a responsibility to be the squad here in New Hampshire that brings people together, brings groups together, communities together, individuals, families, you name it, and provides baseball to them in a meaningful way.
I want to go to Ted Knorr, and then I want to get Michael to give us some information about ticket prices and
Sure.
how we can buy tickets and such. Ted, you're on.
Okay. My daughter wouldn't forgive me if I don't get the answer to this question.
Sure.
What is a Fisher Cat?
That is a great question. That is a great question. I and one that I was asked many times when I took the job here. So, for any SNL fans, Mike Myers used to have a great character. I think Linda Richmond was the name of the character, where he would say, Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island, right? So I think that the fun joke that I like to say is neither a fisher nor a cat, right? But it's actually part of the weasel family. It is a really cool, a fisher is what it's actually called, but it's a small mammal that lives in the forest. It's native to this area and embodies a lot of the spirit, whether it's that kind of tenacity and ferocity that we think that Manchester and New Hampshire embodies. So without doing my Mike Myers impression, that's my answer.
Thank
So
you.
You got kind of like a bear-like, weasel-like, and if you see our mascot too, a little bit ambiguous. You got some bear in there. You got some, you got some cat, feline. You got some, maybe muskrat in there as well. But hey, we're in New Hampshire. We're in the forest. You're going to see something on four legs that you may not be able to identify. So it's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Heather, did you have something?
Oh yeah, Fisher Cats. I first discovered them in Connecticut, and they are a very interesting beast because they're kind of like elusive and invisible until you hear them scream in the middle of the night, and it sounds like someone being attacked in the forest. So
that's great.
I actually got really nervous one night, and I went out with my dog and a flashlight, and I was like looking for the person who was being attacked in the field, and it turned out it was just a Fisher Cat. Someone said, "Oh yeah, the thing that sounds like it's a person screaming, it's a Fisher Cat." Just so you know, they're very vocal.
That's the fun part, right? Yeah, for
mysterious beasts in the woods that scream in the middle of the night.
Sure, and have some fun with it, right? And I think closely related. This is a animal fact, right? Turning into the animal facts hour, but closely related to the marten. If anybody is familiar with that,
they seem to be sort of like a cross between a marten and a little bit like a a wolverine, but not as large and ferocious, maybe smaller and ferocious. I'm not really sure, but anyway, it's a great name
in that family. And yeah, absolutely. I think it's always fun, that some great minor league team names out there. We all know the trend, right? So a lot of trend, whether it's the Chihuahuas or, we've seen some, the trash pandas, I think is one of my personal favorites that we've seen down in Birmingham. So, listen, going back to fun, if you can't have fun in minor league baseball, I don't know where you can. So it's been fun to see some of those names crop up over the years.
I wanted to ask you a question about the Hispanic community, because the Copa de División, I think it's called.
Yeah, you nailed it.
The whole Spanish, the minor league teams that all have a special Hispanic personality from time to time, and I think that's really cool. I wanted to know what the Fisher Cats had in store for that.
Yeah,
Or maybe
absolutely.
they already have one.
Yeah, and we do have an alternate identity that's part of that program, the Gatos Feroces. So I'm gonna bring out
Gatos Feroces.
I'm gonna bring out that word again. I said ferocious in English. Now I'm gonna say it in Espanol. I'm actually I'm a lover of languages. I will not subject I'm gonna veto any requests to speak because I'm in the early stages, but I love to teach myself different languages. So I'm currently trying to teach myself Korean. So would love to go to a KBO baseball game in the next 5 years and maybe be able to order something off the menu or something like that. But no, to your point, Heather, it's a really important part of, minor league baseball is throwing a lot of resources behind that program. Once again, here in New Hampshire, we do have, and you'll see it a couple times on the calendar that by the way, the promo calendar will be released tomorrow. So we have teased that's not inside information. So, I feel okay saying it. But we do have, so there will be three different games where we will go by that alternate identity. And I think, Heather, to take it to the next step, we've had this identity for the last couple of years, and that's fun, and it certainly celebrates Hispanic heritage and, calls attention to, some of the great Hispanic players that have come through here that have played in Major League Baseball. But there's more that we can do, and something that I'm really looking at this year is really engaging with local groups as well. And that's anything from pregame performances to honoring some of these, honoring some local legends or players that have played with us past, present, and hopefully future, as we talk about youth sports and what that means as well. And then trying to make the games too really have that, no pun intended, flavor. Maybe going back to the food and beverage component and seeing what we can do to really round out what a Copa night looks like, and if that can truly be a celebration of Hispanic heritage. Don't need to tell anybody on this call, right, what what that heritage has meant to the game of baseball in the last 100 years. And so it's a really cool opportunity for us here in the minors to celebrate that. And we can do that once again through the identity and through some of our programming that night. But I hope we can also tell some stories throughout that and, celebrate, both the people that are, currently on our team, but as well as those that have come before us that have helped shape who the Fisher Cats are and certainly who baseball is. I'm also excited, you're talking international. I'm excited we've got the World Baseball Classic this year too. It's always one of my favorites.
Well, Michael, why don't you tell us how we can get tickets to the ballpark this year, some costs and whatnot. I think the costs aren't going up. They're staying the same this year.
That's correct. Yeah, Bruce, thank you very much. And listen, I'd love to, for anybody on this call, please feel free. I'll drop it in the chat, but please feel free to reach out at any time. I'd be happy to be a resource for anybody on this group. Bruce and I are also talking about ways that we could potentially get SABR out in a meaningful way as a group. But I also know that there's baseball fans on this call that, hey, a Thursday night baseball might be calling, right? And coming out. So we do have tickets starting at just $8, which is, once again, something that we're very proud of. I'd also be happy, and something that, I think Bruce and I will be talking about too, is putting together a special SABR offer for people that, for members that we could look to offer a reduced race ticket across the ballpark, and make sure that you have access to not only, general seating, but some other areas as well. So that's something that we can talk offline about as well. I do want to make sure that this group, as well as other groups and people, the great thing about talking with people, if I'm talking with a SABR group, I'm talking to, 12 individuals tonight right now that are part of this particular group, but I can promise you, and it's not a stretch to say that everybody on this call is also affiliated with other groups in their life, and whether that's as close-knit as their immediate family or a community group or things that children or neighbors or, churches, what have you do. Always happy to talk about ways to come out to the ballpark, whether that's individually or as a group. So once again, I'll drop my my email in the chat, and if there's ever anything that I can do to help or answer any questions for you, please feel free to let me know, and would love to talk to anybody at any time about coming out to the Delta Dental Stadium in 2023 and beyond.
Well, you're certainly going to see a lot of us this year, I think. I know you're going to be seeing Molly and I this year several times going forward, but I want to thank Michael Neis for doing this for us. This has been a terrific discussion. We got off the rails with the concessions there a little bit, my friend, but I think that's okay. It was pretty cool. It was an interesting discussion, I thought, but I didn't think it was going to go that way tonight. But Dixie's got his hand up. Well, real quick, Dixie.
I want to continue with the concessions for a second.
Sure.
I have no restrictions, but I'd be happy to join Molly in a fine salad as long as I could get a nice big box of onion rings to go with it.
Ooh. Ooh. Now you're speaking my language, Dixie.
And all your beers are lost on me because I don't drink. But what I need for my addiction at the ballpark is somebody somewhere there making chocolate shakes thick and rich so that I can buy those.
All right.
I liked you.
Remember, Dixie, I said the pen was going to be handy. All right. So
Write that down.
I had season tickets at the Red Sox for 30 years. I know what it is to spend money for food. So if they're charging $5 or $6 for a chocolate shake, I don't care.
Well, I when I was out in the Bay Area, I may have to may have to turn off the recording, but every once in a while, maybe when the A's were across the Bay, I would head over to then AT&T Park across the Bay, which is, by the way, a beautiful facility. The Giants, now Oracle Park, I believe. But they would have the famous Buena Vista Hotel Irish coffee was one of the things they would offer, and anybody who's
also have Ghirardelli out in left
they
field.
Also do. Yes, they do. They do also have Ghirardelli. So both of which on anybody who's been to a game there knows what a summer night in San Francisco. If you think you're in Southern California with the temperatures, you've got
You get Ghirardelli hot chocolate.
Yes. I've got my theory is that they probably lead the league in sweatshirt sales in the gift shop, because I think during the day it's 75 degrees. Everyone's out. They're, doing the touristy things in San Francisco. Oh, we'll top it off with the Giants game at night. They get there, that marine layer sets in. It's about 40 degrees, with some, with some moisture in the air. And suddenly, yes, Dixie, suddenly a Ghirardelli, a hot chocolate, or in my case, a nice Irish coffee wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Back in the 90s, I went out there to see Candlestick Park.
Freezing.
Because I thought it was going to go. So I went out.
Yeah.
I knew what was going to happen. I knew it. I had 3 layers of clothing on, gloves, winter underwear, a jacket, a hat, and everything. And I froze at the night game. The next day, I had shorts and a t-shirt on because it was 80.
Well, if anyone, I'll close it on this. Can anybody name the famous Mark Twain quote about summer in San Francisco?
I spent a winter there one day in summer.
Ooh, you're close. You're close. I think you said the coldest winter he ever experienced was a summer in San Francisco. So, hey, if you can end on a Mark Twain quote, you might,
Right,
an English teacher somewhere might give me a pat on the back. But no, I really do appreciate I appreciate everyone's time. Really, really great conversation. And once again, nothing would make me happier than to see everybody at some point at the ballpark this year, or on the phone, or via email, or in any way possible. Would love to connect and make sure that we stay in great touch.
Thank you, Michael.
This has been a
Thank
great
you.
discussion, everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We're going to be meeting again next Monday night for our very first trivia night. And then I'm going to plug Ted Knorr, who's going to be presenting to us the first Monday in March. He's going to be talking about Rap Dixon. He's done this several times before. So this is a well-polished and professional presentation that I know is going to be as slick as could be. Isn't that right, Ted? Yeah, he's shaking his head, so we're good. So, Michael, you're welcome for any of our meetings as well. If you want me
Thank
to
you,
send you a
Bruce.
schedule, I'm happy to do that, okay? But let's get everybody out of here. We're gonna have everybody have a great night. We're gonna see you next Monday. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Don't
everybody.
forget Sabre Day, guys.